really spending time in the Amazon jungle, extended periods of time in the Amazon jungle, doing dietas with master plants, taught me that none of this really matters. None of it. Not the travels, not the achievements, not the accolades, not the qualifications or the life experience. None of it, because locked within the DNA of plants, as a very wise Colombian elder said to me, locked within the DNA of plants is the meaning of what it truly means to be human, the answer to our life, on earth, the way of living in harmony and right relationship on earth. And so, if we are not in good, solid relationship with the plants, then we are, very lost, arguably, and potentially in a very destructive place.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Psychedelic Conversations podcast. I have with me today Marc-John Brown, and he is a shamanic coach, mentor, head coach at Plant Spirits School, co-founder of Jungle Wisdom Academy. Welcome, Marc. So good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure for us. And so, as always, we like to always listen to your background, your story. How did you get into this medicine work? What brings you here and everything that you are offering and doing right now? How did you get to do this? So it'd be nice to hear your story a little bit.
How did I get to where I am now and doing what I'm doing? It's been a very long journey, 14 years in total. My shamanic path began about 14 years ago, in the very same year that I met my wife, and it all happened in South America. So yeah, I went through whilst I was living in South America, in Argentina, actually, I went through a really kind of big spiritual awakening, and that led to me then hitchhiking my way across the entirety of South America through Chile and Bolivia into Peru, which is where I met my wife. But in the process of doing that, I came face to face with the South American indigenous populations, because I was hitchhiking and they travel in a way that they don't use public transport. They use each other's transport, basically. So I was hitchhiking. And I ended up traveling with trucks full of, indigenous Quechua and Aymara people in Bolivia. And so my spiritual awakening, coming together with me meeting these fascinating indigenous populations, planted the seed for me becoming interested in shamanism and of course, psychotropic plant medicines. And February 2009, I had my first San Pedro cactus ceremony on the edge of Lake Titicaca, the highest lake in the world, on the Bolivian side. Then crossed into Peru, met the woman who then became my wife, and yeah, from there we traveled far and wide together, as far as a shamanic community in South Korea, traveling through China, and then we spent some time in the rainforest in Malaysia, Taman Negara, with the Batik people, studying their shamanic traditions as well. And all through these years, just always on a path of learning with psychotropic plant medicines, primarily ayahuasca, which I had my first ceremony of in 2011. And it was always just there, the shamanic development and the psychotropic plant medicine healing. I went through my own journey to listening too much to the voices of society, thinking that I have to tick this box and tick that box and achieve this and achieve that to be normal or accepted or something. And in the end, none of it really gave me happiness. And, actually, I was kind of driven to a really deep place of darkness and depression and near bankruptcy as well. And it was from that place of really deep darkness that this path that I had been on for so many years, was there to kind of catch me and save me. And from there, everything that I'm doing now was birthed. Everything I had done over those years in the world of shamanic practice development and psychotropic plant medicine, healing, and consciousness research and development, it became alchemized in my darkness into service, an act of service for the rest of the world. And now I do nothing else except for work in the field of psychotropic plant medicine healing and shamanic practice development.
Thank you so much for sharing. And what are psychotropic plants for our listeners, that are tuning in maybe for the first time and they first time heard this word or the concept?
Yeah, well, I mean, somebody else asked me this as well. What's the difference between psychotropic and psychedelic? Psychotropic essentially just means changes the chemicals in your brain, right? And changes the perception of your mind, right? Whereas psychedelic means induces visions, right? And gives you visions. So yeah, essentially psychotropic plants are that plants that change your brain chemistry, change your mind, essentially. As Michael Pollan on his Netflix documentary says, how to change your mind. Everything that was in that documentary, that was all, they were all psychotropics and psychedelics, actually.
For me, psychotropic, I hear more sort of psychotropic can, is encompassing wider range of plant allies rather than just the classical psychedelics that we have come to know of. So it's kind of like a more of a wider umbrella of covering wide range of plant allies. Is that correct? Would you say?
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. There are, it's a much wider range of plants that are psychotropic, some of which are psychedelic,
I love that definition because, as I'm, as the podcast is progressing and evolving and we talking to so many different, guests here that have so many different experiences with different plants, it is, it's just for me, every day I'm hearing of a different plant, different psychotropic plant, different psychedelics. There are so many. It's just infinite wide range of earth medicines out there, psychotropic medicines or functional. All of them. It's just so profound to realize that we've been surrounded with so much gift from the earth, and finally we recognizing that we're not alone, and there are non-speaking, living and breathing beings that are here to accompany us and to take us through this journey. So yeah, thank you for that. It's a beautiful realization, and I think a lot of people are coming to this realization now. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because I sense that you kind of work through that concept of more like earth medicines, communing with them, and also I sense there is an acceptance, there is a surrender in some sense to the evolution of your own journey, which didn't look like many people that I follow and I observe and read from their content, that I sense that a lot of people just want to jump to the conclusion, come to a point, I have arrived, here I am, this is what I want to offer, this is what I want to do for the world, and I want to change the world with this thing. And then I look at your posts and your way, like the way you express yourself, it's like we're all on a journey, and this is what I'm doing right now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It took a little bit of time to arrive at that place, because I did go through my stage of wanting to have the finished article, wanting to be the finished article right now. And like it is all I mean, in my humble opinion, and in my experience, what I have lived, it was all for me just ego illusion. Total ego illusion, and this need to it's like we are talking of being different and evolved, whilst rooting our ways and even our communication styles in the same old habits of the world that has essentially driven us to, actually arguably driven us to the need to turn to psychedelics for healing in the first place. We're still kind of rooted in those habits, even in certain pockets of the influencer world and entrepreneurial influencing. I see it, and I have lived it. I don't just see it and judge it. I have lived it through myself, coming to that realization, being in that dark place that I mentioned earlier, made me realize, like, wow, I was telling myself so many stories here about what success is, like what it means to be successful, or like be an authority, or and these words actually, like nowadays, I really don't use so much. I don't really say success so much. I don't really say authority so much. It's like, I'll just do my work, and like if it serves people and that seems to create some kind of a authority for me, then okay, if that's what people want to say about me, great, I'm grateful. I won't really be saying it about myself, though. I just focus on my work, and if people want to join me on the journey, then they're more than welcome.
Yeah, this is a great approach. Yeah, totally. And it's more grounded, and it's not ushering us into thinking like this is the finished project, and here we are. So you are a lead coach at the Plant Spirit School, one of the, you said. What does that look like for you to coach people? Like what does it look like? Meaning, like, what are you sharing? And also, what is needed right now in terms of like, I am aware that so many organizations are creating, educational platforms, programs, academies. You're also a co-founder of your Jungle Wisdom Academy. Like, what is the intention? I don't want to say goal. Also, like I'm trying to eliminate some of these words in my vocabulary as well. I don't think they serve well, especially in this work. So what would be the intention and the direction are we going? Because I do realize the education part is so profound and important and critical right now. And yeah, I'd like to hear your voice on what is the intention that we are being driven to, create these coaching and mentoring and teaching, and why is it needed so much right now?
Yeah, well, I think that I think that I have become, one of two lead coaches, by the way. The other lead coach is Anna Holub, who's an amazing, practitioner, and she specializes in forgiveness as a way of, healing. So I think that I came to be lead coach at Plant Spirit School because my values, my vision, my mission, my ethos. I mean, there is not one area of misalignment that I can identify between myself and the Plant Spirit School and Entheo Nation, which is the mother company of Plant Spirit School. I find it difficult to identify misalignments in the values. That's probably why I am, lead coach of Plant Spirit School, because we are so aligned. And the way that I see that, education really needs to be given in this psychedelic renaissance that we're in the middle of, it aligns fully with the ethos of Plant Spirit School and Entheonation, which is making sure that or doing our part anyway, to make sure that this psychedelic renaissance happens in ways that are responsible and integral and ethical, in ways that are like rooted in yes, harm reduction, and the ethics of caring, but what is most important for me, and also in big ways for the founder of Plant Spirit School, the cross-cultural level of ethics, responsibility, integrity. So living in sacred reciprocity, and trying to create an equitable landscape in the psychedelic renaissance, an inclusive landscape that actually, does not bastardize all of these sacred practices that are now exploding in popularity all over the world, to not bastardize them and take them away from the people who have been stewarding them for sometimes tens of thousands of years, and to bring them forward. Like when I say inclusivity, I mean, yes, I want to include the original bearers of these wisdom traditions in our circles, not just sit with our cups of cacao and, from our circles respectfully send, blessings and prayers back to the indigenous populations and which is beautiful in and of itself, but to actually bring them and sit them next to us and have them in the room with us, whether that be online or in person, be like, include them in our circles. So that is probably, to answer your question, that is probably, what I feel is most important in the middle of all of this, psychedelic renaissance. But on a wider level, and a wider, just a general societal level, the world has driven itself to such a level of disconnection from, and this sounds cliche, I know, we hear it all the time, we're so disconnected from who we really are. But what does that actually mean? We are super disconnected, like living in apartment blocks with walls dividing us. We don't even know the name of the person on the other side of the wall. We don't know like how to heal ourselves anymore. We don't know different plants. We are not connected to the natural world that actually gave birth to this world that we are living in, and yeah, what psychedelics are doing and why we're in the middle of a psychedelic renaissance is because people have come, especially during the pandemic, I think people have just been driven to absolute breaking point, and at that breaking point, they're kind of realizing, whoa, like I am so far away from myself. Like, who the hell am I? Who am I? What does life mean to me? Where have I come from? Where am I going? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Do I have gifts? If so, what are my gifts? They're realizing that their entire identity and being has been swallowed by this big machine that we've made around ourselves, and I think that's why it's important, because people are literally running on fire, like running from the flames of the fire that we have lit in this world, to just destroy the human spirit.
Yeah, that's so wonderful way of looking at this whole process, the renaissance that is coming and emerging. And so would you say that in event of, there's also a saying that, the psychedelics are coming really fast because the world is going through a shift, because there's a lot of spiritual concepts like being thrown around saying, everyone's awakening, and the world is awakening, and so on and so forth. But I always like to be more grounded and think maybe not, because if you look at the time of Rumi, the mystics, esoteric traditions, 100, 500 years, 1,000, Buddha, I'm sure Buddha and his friends were sitting together and saying, the world is awakening. There is always going to be like what I'm trying to say is that when we're in this, when ourselves, like the individuals, the majority, or the similar, processes that they are going through, where they are in that breaking point, and they are ready. So I really honor the divine timing. I really honor and I acknowledge the divine timing, meaning that when people are ready and they go through their own evolutionary process, waking, and their consciousness is kind of changed, and the way they look at their life and story. So I'm thinking, is there a truth here that people are talking, because of a biblical events such as pandemic is now waking up the world, or these things always happened in history, always happened, always will happen, and some of us happen to be caught in this awakening process? Maybe, what would you say to that?
Ooh, that's a big one. Yeah. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it is just like a big ocean of consciousness and experience, and we are caught. Well, we are riding those waves of this ocean of consciousness and experience, which run in cycles, like and yeah, what you said about the times of the mystics, like, though they were also in a cycle, and so yeah, I can sense like the I guess the call for groundedness, the call for humility as well. And I completely, I'm with you, I'm with you on that. When we become so overly identified with like ascension, 5D, like the new earth, creating the new earth, it's like, well, yeah, that's going to happen. The new earth will come because the new earth has come many times before, and we're just being part of it, and it's an act of responsibility on our part to not run and fly the flags of like, I am evolved, or we are evolved, or we are reaching evolution, or we are, awakening, or it's an act of responsibility actually to not run and scream, to the four winds of this, to shake everybody up, but rather to impart knowledge and wisdom in a way that's grounded and nurturing. There's a good word. It's a nurturing way. Rather than like, it's happening, like, we're awakening, shit. Like, yeah. Of course it's happening. Of course it's happening, because it is the nature of reality, which is cyclical, and there are, I mean, if you look at all the sacred traditions, they all talk similar. There are so many parallels. The Mayan long count, even in biblical terms, right? Islam as well, I'm sure, like all the spiritual traditions and wisdom traditions, they have so many parallels that show that we are just moving through another cycle of evolution, in the grand scheme of things, in the grand unfolding.
Yeah. And my understanding is that there's going to be some of us caught in this, some of us, coming to it and actively, going through it and express it and embody it and do the work in some way, contribute, be part of it. And there's always going to be people not part of it as well. And that's okay too. I think my grounded understanding is that, just like you said, there's always been cycles. The earth has been here for so long, and I really try and avoid some of these conversations that perpetuate. This is it, this is it. This is the one now. okay, we all change, we all wake up, and if we don't, we're doomed. The earth's going to be, doomed, and we're going to destroy everything. So that's the kind of thing that I try and avoid. And it kind of creates division, asleep and awake. Yeah, I think in the most grounded way, that if we can understand, we are actually experiencing duality, two sides of the coin, as long as we live in this container, the human suit, the container, as long as we are this human body, we are always going to experience the dualistic, the two sides of the coin. And, when we start talking about the awakened ones and the asleep ones, it just kind of perpetuates that more and more, and it kind of drives us away from the important thing. And it creates more division, us and them, psychedelic people and non-psychedelic people, spiritual people. And it's just kind of like perpetuates and kind of, I know it's all happening unconsciously, trying to bring everyone together and maybe trying to kind of like wake people up and come on, see this, what I'm seeing, can you also see this? But one of the most profound experiences I had with Dr. Joe Dispenza in his 1 week retreat. Not that he was doing anything special, by the way. This is again another esoteric tradition brought to the Western life, bringing people together so they can sit together and meditate, away from their usual distractions, away from their usual, where they invest their time and waste their time. So it's a very clever way of bringing people and really start opening up conversations about what is important, what is valuable, like who are you, just like you said. He doesn't use psychedelics, but what I loved about this week was that at the end of the week, he said, when you go home, I do not want you to tell everyone or try to convince everyone that what you have done is the best thing and that everybody should do this. And he said, if someone is not ready, you will do more harm than good. So please keep it to yourself. Instead, be the expression, be the embodiment of what you have learned and what you have experienced, and let people, all the others, make their own decision when they experience you. I thought that was like the spot on, the grounded way of bringing everything together. And I would like to see this happening in the psychedelic renaissance as well. Like the therapeutic model, the clinical model, the indigenous model, and then everything is kind of exploding, like you said. And I hope to see a common ground. I hope to see acceptance of all of these modalities because of there's supposedly 8 billion of us on this planet, and everybody's going to be resonating and drawn to different things, right? But I also understand that we need to stay humble, grounded, and also honor our planet Earth, which stands alone and powerful, and that's indestructible, and in a way that is just the core truth of everything. So we can do all of these things, go ahead and do and experience, and however you would like to live your life. But one thing is for sure, and the uncorruptible truth is that we need to look after our plants, and we need to be humbled by them, I think. And I feel like I sense that this is the what you are advocating.
Yeah, absolutely. We we are currently the brand that I'm building with my wife, Jungle Wisdom Academy. Through Jungle Wisdom Academy, we're currently facilitating, we're in week 3 of a 4.5-5 week master plan Dieta with Bobby and Sana. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but
I am.
Yeah. So and this is one of the things that I was teaching last week is I, for such maybe not such a long time in the grand scheme of things, but for a good few years, I really thought that I had a lot of answers to life, because I've traveled far and wide, I speak multiple languages, I have achieved this and I've achieved that and ba 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 ba. But really spending time in the Amazon jungle, extended periods of time in the Amazon jungle, doing dietas with master plants taught me that none of this really matters. None of it, not the travels, not the achievements, not the accolades, not the, qualifications or the life experience, none of it. Like none of it really matters. Because, locked within the DNA of plants, as a very wise Colombian elder said to me, locked within the DNA of plants is the meaning of what it truly means to be human, the answer to our life, on earth, the way of living in harmony and right relationship on earth. And so, if we are not in good, solid relationship with the plants, then we are, very lost, arguably, and potentially, in fact, I would say not even potentially, because the evidence is all around us, in a very destructive place,
Yeah, that's a really beautiful way to put it. So you are passionate about the ethics and the grounded integrity of coming into the medicine work and communing with the psychotropic medicines. If you could speak to that, what would you say in terms of these are the real conversations, I believe, and I know you're passionate about. So if you could tell us, what are you so passionate about in this space?
Yeah, fine. I mean, I will quickly just touch upon, harm reduction and, the ethics of caring and the ethics of therapeutics, because that's fundamental, like truly fundamental in this. It is not my, biggest area of, advocacy and practice, but it is, important that this, because the medicines are falling into the hands of many different people nowadays, and there are people who are, arguably, just seeing an opportunity to, make money from these medicines, and actually they don't really have so much experience, not a lot of training, either traditional or clinical or therapeutic, and it's really important that, we advocate for best practice on this front, and for people to really commit to deep levels of training and preparation. And of course, the ethics of caring is a whole, it's a whole world in and of itself. The ethics of caring, actually, those words right there, the ethics of caring, is actually a book by Kylie Taylor. I don't know if you're familiar, but she taught, 2 modules, I think, 1 or 2 modules, 2, at the Plant Spirit School just recently. Everybody was mesmerized by her teachings, and she's just such a beautiful presence in the world, but that's a whole thing. It's a whole art, being truly careful and ethical in your practice. And it all comes down to the art of conscious human relating, and being aware of the responsibility of your role as facilitator or healer or therapist or whatever your role is, or leader, so big on all of that, big on all of this. But the biggest area that is, it burns a real fire in my heart is the ethics, responsibility and integrity of people's practice on a cross-cultural level. It's huge. Creating the psychedelic renaissance that we're in the middle of, making sure that it happens in a way that is inclusive, equitable, and is not disconnected from the indigenous populations who brought all of these sacred traditions and plants to our awareness, in the first place. especially when we talk of, living indigenous cultures such as the ayahuasca lineages, the San Pedro lineages, the peyote lineages, So just providing one, working in a way that is rooted in their wisdom and in their practices. This does not mean we need to be rigid and just do things in the way that the traditions tell us. No, but to have it rooted and always referring back to the root. I am an apprentice of the Shipibo Conibo tribe of the Peruvian Amazon jungle. But, yes, I sing and develop Icaros, but I still play handpan and guitar and didgeridoo and harmonica and, all different instruments, right? That's not Shipibo tradition, right? But, I try to have a practice that is rooted in their ways, and at the core of that tradition is plant-spirit connection, right? So everything, that I do in my apprenticeship with them is focused on plant-spirit connection. So that's one thing, is to have your practice rooted in, indigenous ways and rooted in indigenous cosmologies and indigenous reciprocity. But the second part that I'm going to mention is one way of really practicing indigenous reciprocity, which is allowing your ministry and your practice and your presentations and your education and everything, all the services that you deliver, allowing these to cultivate an inclusive space where the indigenous populations are able to come to the table with us, and be in the space with us, where they have their wisdom and words and position and perspective respected and honored, in a way that helps them to recognize that people are listening to me. It's huge. This is huge for me, primarily because of the deep wounds of colonialism, which I have witnessed firsthand, living with a number of different indigenous populations of South America. My wife is a native Peruvian of the Chanca lineage, high in the Andes. And what the culture with which they grow is like riddled with a lack of self-worth. They don't think that they are valuable in the world. They don't, this is not a blanket statement. Of course, there are pockets of these societies that are like very strong and rooted and, fight for their rights and, but there is a general wound among indigenous populations that doesn't see themselves as being worthy of participating in the world, And even when I married my wife, her own brothers said to her, like, "Oh, well done, yeah, you're improving our race," That was many years ago. Since then, they have stopped because I've spoken a lot to them about this. But yeah, these cross-cultural wounds and colonialism-based wounds are perhaps where my biggest passion lies. And so the ethics and responsibility and integrity of, all of our services and practices, my kind of strongest area of focus is cross-cultural.
Yeah, I love that. So profound. This conversation speaks to, again, humans not divided, we shouldn't. So it kind of talks to the race and color and the richness of the global community as one collective, and not that one side is better and the others are not. Again, coming back, it's always the separation and the division. I feel like your approach kind of brings together an inclusivity and just kind of promoting more peace and stop dividing, just come together. We all have so much to give to each other and teach and help. I really
collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Collaboration as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Just recognizing the gift that every human being on this planet is a gift, and their life is a gift, regardless of their tradition, color, geographical placement, doesn't matter. So I really love that, and I really hope to see that psychedelic renaissance can bring more, highlights to that and bring more attention to that, and join us all together. I love that. So thank you for doing this work. I think it's so crucial. What does, in your experience, what do you, when you speak to the elders of these different traditions, indigenous populations, what do they say about the West really running with these, medicines, and just kind of, what are they thinking?
Some of them, and in fact, some of them, again, arguably living right, like doing things right. Some of them just don't even give any attention to it. Like they're just, and what we were saying earlier about, let the world do their thing and I'll just focus on my path, and some of the wisest elders that I have spent time with don't even, it's not that they don't care, they don't know, and they don't want to know, and they don't need to know, and still they are performing miraculous feats of healing and transformation for Western people, but yeah, the wisest ones that I have come across, like, of course, us Westerners, we are very complex and so full of and some of the most wise and powerful elders I've seen, like they just don't absorb any of it. They don't really, of course they will provide a space to listen, but it's like you can see that it's like water on a duck's feather, like just kind of like and they just focus on the energy, and help the energy to flow, and that's all they live to do, is to help energy flow, and that's all they care about, but having said that, there are, a number of indigenous elders, especially the ones who, have had their land come under threat, significant threat. Of course, this wakes up a real warrior spirit, where they feel that they, need to be heard, and so with these types of, elders and indigenous spokespeople, we collaborate. My wife and I, we collaborate with them. We, help them to get their messages to the world. It is, in many cases, it's like, some who have kind of come slightly more into slightly more deep levels of contact with the modern world and the economy, and I have heard them saying like we're grateful that this is happening, because actually now that we are subject to this market-based economy in this globalized world, it is providing families, indigenous families, a source of income, selling hape, also selling ayahuasca, in an underground way, but it's happening, right? Of course, it's not underground there, but once it reaches, Europe or the USA, it's, underground. But it's making them money, it's making them an income. And so some of them have said, we're grateful that this happens, but please behave correctly when you have these medicines in your hands, and don't forget about us, don't forget about us. Don't leave us behind, we help each other. We're helping you, you help us too,
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. And as we're coming to the end of our conversation, I'd like to ask you about your Jungle Wisdom Academy. What are you providing? You said about Dietas. Maybe, our listeners heard Dieta for the first time. Maybe you might want to say something about that. And what are you offering through your Jungle Wisdom Academy?
Yeah, Jungle Wisdom Academy is a brand that I'm building with my wife, and it was birthed during the pandemic, like July 2020, roughly, and it has been such a slow, steady, loving project. We're not in a rush to make this happen. We're just really being of service through this brand. So um, yeah, I will talk a little bit into the Dieta, but in a minute. My wife has built an incredible relationship with one family of cacao farmers in the Cusco region of Peru. She has a very, very close relationship with them, and they are really, as far as we have seen, harvesting and producing cacao to the very highest of ceremonial standard. It's incredible. Pure ancestral tradition as well. So we sell their cacao basically, but we do so in a way that allows the people who are drinking our cacao. Of course, we run ceremonies together, and my wife and I, we are ceremonialists. We offer ceremonies, and we offer healing ceremonies, and healings, shamanic healings. But we do this in a way that, again, lives by our ethos, connects the modern world, all of our customers, with the farmers. So we will get the farmers on video calls in front of our customers so that they teach how to do it ancestrally, how to do it with respect for the land and the local flora and fauna. All things, sacred indigenous plant medicine, psychotropic plant medicines. I can, provide, we can provide guidance and coaching, mentoring. We coach and mentor people who are beginning their path on in the way of psychotropic plant medicine healing, shamanic practice development. We take groups of people across to Peru to sit with the indigenous elders. In fact, we will be co-hosting the Plant Spirit School retreat in March. That's the next time we're going to be over there, and we have 4 of our indigenous elders coming in, 2 from the Quero Nation and 2 from the Shipibo Nation. But this is also, an offering of Jungle Wisdom Academy. We take people across, have them sit in ayahuasca ceremonies, San Pedro ceremonies, and learn about the local cosmologies, practices, and give them tools that they can take home to use in their everyday lives. And of course, at a distance, like I said earlier, we run long distance master plant dietas with a number of different, master plants. At the moment, we're working with Bobin Sana, and a master plant dieta is a very ancient technology to tap into the consciousness of plants and to be filled with the power and the healing properties of a plant spirit. And whether or not you believe in a plant spirit is, it's up to you. But, more and more scientific research is going into the notion that plants have consciousness and awareness. They're alive, they're aware, they can feel, they're sentient, they sense, you, and they know, they have the answers to life on earth, like I said earlier. And so to do a dieta, it involves, highly restrictive practices in eating and living in general. No sex, no alcohol. So no sex, drugs, and rock and roll. No sex, no alcohol, no dairy, no red meat, no pork, no salt, no sugar. A lot of no spicy food, no fried foods. A lot of restrictions. Whilst opening a relationship, ingesting small amounts of this plant on a daily basis, and developing a very subtle, soft, intuitive, spiritual connection with the spirit of this plant for the purposes of healing, insight, understanding. You really do begin to understand life more when you do Dieta. And also power reaping for somebody who is an apprentice of the path. The powers that they are able to gain and garner for the purposes of healing inside, for example, an ayahuasca ceremony, they are gained from the plants that we do Dieta with. So that, and finally, online and in-person workshops, masterclasses, courses in shamanism, psychotropic plant medicine practice, and just general indigenous cosmology and practices and ways of life, delivered by the indigenous populations, facilitated by us. So that's Jungle Wisdom Academy in a nutshell.
That's so wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all the offerings. And also the Dieta seems like the absolute technology to actually connect with our own essence and the nature around us and the life itself. It just feels like a very profound technology.
It is, yeah. It is the way of, well, I'm not going to say the way, but it's one of the, most powerful ways of really learning what life is about in its deepest core.
Yeah, that's so profound. Well, thank you so much for the wisdom that you shared with us today, and would love to have you back at some point following your journey and just keeping in touch, because that's what we like to do with our guests, just to kind of bring you back and then learn more about your progressive journey and how it goes for you and your community. If that's
it will be a pleasure. It will be my absolute pleasure. Yeah, thank you very much.
Of course. So we'll have all your details so our listeners can connect and learn from you and just bring more richness in their understanding of the psychotropic plant medicines. I love that word. And as we ending our conversation, what would you say as your last words of wisdom to our listeners?
Never forget that we are nature. We are nature. There is no separation. We are nature. That's all.
That's beautiful. Thank you again. And thank you everybody for tuning in. Hope you guys enjoyed this conversation, and do get in touch with Marc and myself. Share your experiences. If there's any questions, comment below and we'll get back to you. So thank you so much, Marc. All the best and see you very soon.
Yeah. See you.
Bye everyone. Bye. See you on the next one. Thank you so much for joining us. Psychedelic Conversations podcast is designed to educate, inform, and expand awareness. For more information, please head over to psychedelicconversations.com. You can also share with your friends or leave a review so that we can reach more people. You can also join us in our private Facebook group to keep the conversation going. This show is for information purposes only, and it is not intended to provide mental health or medical advice. Thanks for listening.